Yesterday, as of recording this, the 2022 NASCAR schedule seemed to have been leaked onto the internet. Now, I'm probably going to put this out after the schedule is officially announced, so there might be a change or two on it, so this might be somewhat outdated. But as I'm going right now, I want to give the good, the bad, and the ugly of the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series schedule. Let's start off with the bad, because I want to get that out of the way now. Then we'll do good, and then we'll finish out with ugly, because I'm figuring that'll probably be kind of funny to talk about. So for me, there's only two things that I think are really bad. Number one, LA hosting the Clash. Now, I made an entire video about this. I think this is a bad idea. I think this is NASCAR chasing Hollywood, when in reality, they really probably should try and just start and go back to basics when it comes to the prelude to the Daytona 500. But if this does work out, I will concede that it would be a huge push for NASCAR. So again, I don't think it's ugly because there are a lot of good merits to this. I just think that this is NASCAR trying too hard to chase after another audience. But I will say stadium racing has been in NASCAR before. There's precedent for this. But again, not a big fan of it. And then the second one I personally am cool with, but I know that NASCAR fans in general won't be, and it's that Bristol Dirt will be on Easter. Now, I will say having it at night is a good thing. That is a very good thing because I think visibility will be much better, and I think the racing probably will be better. But I do think that having it on Easter, with how generally NASCAR's fan base is, a very Christian conservative fan base, will not be the best thing to do for diehard, more base fans of NASCAR. I think that's going to cause an unnecessary amount of scrutiny for the schedule for that date, and I think that there are going to be a lot of people on the move that day. I mean, Easter is a day that a lot of people go back and forth across country, visiting family, doing whatever. But I do think that if this has a good uptick in ratings compared to even the good ratings that the Monday race had this past year, I think this is something that could stay. I mean, you look what happened when Darlington raced on Mother's Day, had a great uptick in ratings. So I think that there is a lot of upside here. Again, that's why I'm not putting this in the ugly category. All right, I've gotten the bad out of the way. Let's get to good because there's a lot of good. Number one, and I don't really need to explain too much about this because it kind of explains itself, but the 2022 schedule is very similar to the 2021 schedule. There's some big changes, but generally it has a similar shape. And I think the 2021 schedule is a pretty good one. I think so far we've had a very action-packed season, and I think that in general we've had a pretty good season. So keeping it pretty good like that and pretty similar, I think is a good move. Also, I know that a lot in the industry are going to disagree with me on this, but for ratings-wise, because ratings right now are very important with TV negotiations for the next contract, I think having one weekend off is a very good move. Now, I don't agree with it being on Father's Day. I think Father's Day is a weekend that they should race on. I think that NASCAR has definitely been built upon with fathers and sons, and I think that's a very good tradition that should stay. But I think having one weekend off will be good. It keeps consistency when it comes to viewership week over week. And on top of that, I think that having it between the Fox and NBC portions could give NBC an added week to really push that they're going to be having NASCAR at that point. So again, I think that's a really good move. Also, I think COTA going to March is a good move. It's generally better weather there, not as much rain in general from what people have said, and I'm going to be honest with you, COTA, weather-wise, was pretty miserable. I got a sunburn and then got stuck in the rain the whole time, so I had to wear stuff over that got drenched and stuck to my skin. It just was very miserable. You can ask Black Flags Matter. He was with me that weekend. Wasn't that great. But I think that having it in March earlier in the season will be a good move. I think it's another high-profile race early in the year that might bump the ratings up and keep people interested longer than they otherwise would have been. Also, it's a dead spot in the track, too, where there's not really much going on. So NASCAR fits really good there. Also, I think Gateway to Cup is a good move. Gateway has been a track that's really attracted a lot of racing fans, especially on the IndyCar side of things. I think the racing has a lot to improve on, but if this car does improve on generally shorter track racing, then I think that it might flourish here. Also, having Michigan and Watkins Glen flip dates, I think, is a good move because Watkins Glen is a very intense, high-profile track that I think could really push a lot of viewers into watching the next week at Daytona. Also, Another thing I really liked is the fact that Richmond has been moved out of the playoffs and into a summer race. As much as I liked Richmond in the early 2000s, the track has really fallen from grace. It was fun being there this weekend, but I will admit the racing could get very boring, especially for the Cup Series. So moving that out and instead moving Homestead into the round of 8 is a great move. I think Homestead is one of the top 5 tracks in NASCAR right now, and the fact that it wasn't in the playoffs for the past 2 years was just an absolute crime to racing fans. Another track in the round of 8 will be Las Vegas Motor Speedway, another track that I think has really come into its own. Yes, I know it's a mile and a half, but I would much rather have Vegas there than Texas. We'll get to Texas later. Kansas has now been moved from the round of 8 to the round of 16 as the second race of the chase, and I think that's a really good move. I was there last year in 2020. I'm going in 2021, and I can tell you that last year I froze my ass off. It was awful. And this year they moved it a week even further back into October. So I think that moving it into a warmer part of the year, which technically would have been this past weekend, is a good move. When you looked at the weather at Kansas this past weekend, it was in the mid 80s. Great weather for fans to attend in, and I think better weather for racing in general. Also, having Auto Club as the second race, I think, is another really good move. I liked having Auto Club as the second race when I was a kid, and I think that having it one last time be the race right after the Daytona 500 before they have this massive upscaling or downscaling, depending on how you look at it, I think is a really good move. And now for the ugly. Texas Motor Speedway still exists. Now, I'll elaborate a little more on that one because I think that's just a very negative way to look at it. And I'm sure plenty of people who like Texas won't be happy with this, but I'm going to just say right now, Texas is probably the worst track on the schedule. Without a doubt, in my opinion. They've absolutely butchered that facility. So having it now open the round of 12 is better than having it in the round of 8. It means that it's not as important in the playoffs. But at the same time, it's still in the playoffs. It's still going to be one of the most important races of the year. And it's still going to be a race that a lot of TV audiences are going to look at, watch the boring racing, and turn off of. And having it still in a pivotal part of the year when that's going on, I think is a horrible, horrible move. And the fact that now it has the weekend before Charlotte for the All-Star race again, I'm sorry. I don't think the All-Star race deserves a weekend anymore. I think it could be a midweek race or it could be, at Charlotte the week of the 600. But having an entire week devoted to a non-points race in frickin' Texas, that's a bad move. But it's probably going to be our glorified testing session for 2023, so I guess there's that at least. Just as long as I don't have Sammy Hagar performing live during the pre-race intros or whatever it was. As long as I don't do something stupid like that, I'm fine with it. As you can tell, I do not like Texas Motor Speedway, and I wish that it was not on the schedule this year. But unfortunately, we're stuck with it for at least another year. And that's really all my thoughts on the schedule. Personally, I think it's a really, really good schedule. I think having also one reduced road course race from it, with Daytona road course not being there, hopefully due to COVID kind of dying down, I think will be a really good move. I think that I overshot with having 7 road courses be a good move. I think 6 would be a better move. Maybe going one more down or whatever, or staying the same would be good. But overall, I really like this schedule. There's a few things I'm not crazy about, but if I'm proven wrong, it will make this schedule god tier in my opinion. If the LA Clash and the Bristol Dirt Race dates prove me wrong, I will be happy being proved wrong. So, what do you think? What do you think about the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series schedule? We don't have laps yet. We don't have times yet. We don't even have the networks that most of the races will be on. But just as the overall schedule on a raw racing fan perspective, I want to know what you think. So let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel for more NASCAR content. And also, thank you to everyone who's jumped on as a channel member. I really, really appreciate your support. So until next time, have a good one.